Hey everybody. So, how's my image? I'm not talking about my actual, physical presentation so much as the image quality. I'm back on my Huawei Mate SE, which I got in, 2018, 2019, I think 18, for $220. A very generous, long-time, I'd say supporter of the podcast, but I've known him since long before I was doing the podcast. But he bought me a Google Pixel 6 a couple years ago, which has an amazing camera. Just everything about it, photographically is amazing. But a few months ago, the battery started swelling, and it split the camera, so that the screen came away from the body. And just yesterday, it just gave up. And so I've ordered a battery replacement kit. We'll see if that fixes it. But until then, I'm back on my Huawei phone, my bargain basement phone, but it's such a high quality thing. It just, I understand it's a complex situation, but it really bums me out that the US government and Google basically killed Huawei's phone division because they were making amazing phones at very reasonable prices. I was very excited about, replacing this one with the newer Huawei, but now that's never going to happen. So now I'm hoping to just get the Pixel fixed. But anyway, I spent a good portion of the morning, way too much of it actually, playing Civilization 4, a game that is, I don't know how old. I'll put it up on screen here. Maybe I won't, because I can't do a whole lot of video editing on this phone. I mean, it's a great phone for what it is, but it doesn't have much memory. So, minimal editing on this video. But I was listening to videos by What If Alt Hist, who is a young guy. And as his channel title suggests, he originally started off doing alternative histories, but now he's just doing basically geopolitical and cultural analysis. And he's young, but he's right-wing, not abrasively so, like the right-wing or the alt-right or whatever you want to call them, the young media stars. Somebody who's definitely more academic, more of a book reader, more of a writer, not so much of a propagandist or cheerleader for a particular faction. But anyway, he was talking about why communism failed globally. And one of the things he said was that at one point, at its height, it controlled about a third of the world's population. And if that's not enough, to get your system off the ground and make it work without the cooperation of antagonistic systems, which is to say the West and capitalism, well then, if you can get to that point and not become sustainable, your ideology doesn't work. And one of the reasons he was talking about, why it doesn't work is just, he actually did quote Kaczynski at one point, but basically just talking about the mentality of leftists and the mentality of people who gravitate to communism. And they tend to be a lot more focused on dividing the wealth rather than creating the wealth. And you can only do that for so long, without some attention to wealth creation before poverty sets in for everybody and things get ugly. And, for a political philosophy which claims to be primarily motivated by the plight of the poor, communism tends to be pretty cruel to the poor. And you could say, I think by his lights, you can't really talk about China as a communist country. He would say that they have survived as long as they have by becoming essentially capitalist, communist in name only. The same with Vietnam. I think they might... Oh, shoot. I got to go clean up some dog poop. All right. Where was I? Anyway, mentality of Marxists and communists typically means that the entire project is doomed to failure, simply because of, the mentality of the types of people who are attracted to that political ideology. And that got me to thinking about the Culture series by Iain M. Banks. It is a space opera science fiction series that is premised on the idea that there is a culture. It's not a government, it's not a political organization, but it is essentially a living arrangement where humans, and these are humans who are not from Earth, the humans on Earth, I think, have been sequestered. Not because we're particularly evil or anything, and maybe just to kind of keep us as a control group, but basically we don't get to participate in the culture, even though the culture knows about us. But the culture is run by a combination of human and artificial intelligence, and I think the real decision-making goes on in the realm of artificial intelligence. And the addition of the AIs, who don't have human psychology, but who are concerned with human well-being, make the culture work. It is a very high-tech living arrangement where anybody can basically do whatever they want. They can be whatever they want. It's all very peaceful and egalitarian and prosperous. So, of course, any story set in that setting is going to be dull as dishwater, right? So most of the stories take place either outside of the culture, but there are representatives of the culture involved, or they take places on the periphery of the culture, or every now and again the culture will get into a war with some other faction or collection of other civilizations, and that's in fact the setting for the first novel, Consider Phlebas. But in this universe, there are lots of the culture is not everything. I mean, the galaxy is densely packed with different species and different civilizations and different governments and whatnot, different factions. And so there's always, something's always being contested. And there is a mentality among certain people to create digital afterlives, basically to resurrect people that they hate and put them in hell. Create hell, and then use it to punish people who had the wrong ideas or, who did bad things or whatnot. And what's more, you create the hell, and then you capture people and you take them on a tour of hell, and you tell them, this is what awaits you unless you shape up. You might bring in a group of 20 and 19 get to go home and one stays. And you don't know who the one is going to be. And they have like a portal back to the real world, and they call people's names, and they get to go out, one at a time, and you're just sitting there waiting to see, waiting for your name to be called. And then it comes down to, there's just two. Is it going to be you or the other guy? Who's going to stay and be tortured forever? But the culture does not approve of these digital hells. And they actually fought a war to end them unsuccessfully. The hells remain, and the war was called the War in Heaven. And the hells remain because nobody knows where the servers that they run on are hosted. And of course, they're hosted by some evil capitalist dude. So Banks is, I think, pretty much on the side of the Marxists. But I was just thinking about, if humanity, if human culture on Earth created the technology that would allow us to create perfect digital replicas of dead people and then subject them either to eternal punishment or reward, who got punished and how severely and for how long would be a function of who controls the technology. So, in a leftist or, Marxist society, different people would be tormented in different ways for, different, essentially eternity, and it would be different in the right, or on the right. And, if you're imagining, like, say, the right of the 1970s or 1980s, then it would be, homosexuals and drug addicts and other deviants from, conservative Christian morality who would be punished in these hells. Although I would think that the Christians would be less likely to create the hells because they believe that, the proper hell already exists. It is administered by a servant of God, a fallen servant of God, but somebody who's still playing his part nonetheless. And it would be the atheist, leftist, semi-rationalist factions, who are motivated by resentment and envy, who would be the ones to set up the hells. And, you might think, and this is sort of geeky philosophizing on the nature of personal identity, but you might think that if you create a digital version of Genghis Khan in order to punish the real Genghis Khan, well, the real Genghis Khan is long dead. You can create a digital doppelganger who believes themselves to be Khan, or Genghis Khan, and who believes himself to have perpetrated the things that you want to punish him for, and who, has a false memory of having done so, but, really the guy that you need to punish, he got off scot-free hundreds of years ago, and you're just creating a new being to vent your anger on. And so, I'm also not wearing the clip-on mic, so this is just, the phone mic picking up my voice. So I fear the loud trucks going by are probably pretty loud. But another question that brings up, other than just issues of personal identity, is could you know, a Marxist-like ideology be workable if you took humans out of the decision loop. You know, if you just let the machines decide how to allocate resources and, you know, take care of people. Is it possible? Another thing that the What If Alt His guy, who's got a name, but I don't know it, one of the things he mentioned was that, and I resonate with this, is that Marxists tend to identify themselves as valuing science and rationality, and yet typically leftist people are the most scientifically illiterate people you'll ever meet, you know, unless they're in fact working scientists or engineers or something. But I know, like, all of the engineers I know, and I know several engineers, they're all right-wingers. You know, the guys who, like, study hard in school and really, you know, work hard at math, they tend to be right-wingers. And it's the, you know, partying, drug-taking, you know, aspirational artist types like me who gravitate to the left. And I did, you know, in my youth. I just don't now. Anyway, what you got? What you got to say to all that? Catch you later.